I wanted to explore the world a little bit before I latched onto something. That's why I didn't choose brand kit. I didn't run with that first off because I tried to kind of continue figuring out like who does this work for? Who would this be valuable to? Like I just had such a hard time figuring that out. And now I have. I have figured it out that I'm valuable to startups that are getting ready to scale. And I can help them scale those operations, especially the marketing team. Hello, my name is Gurjinder Singh, and I am creating my own design studio called Gesso. And this is a series of videos where I'm basically documenting my journey, not every day, but week to week kind of a thing of everything that I'm learning, everything that I'm doing, everything that I maybe failed at, all the experiences, all the learnings, all the takeaways, everything. I'm sharing that here in kind of a vulnerable fashion, in a vlog format. And today I want to talk about this really hilarious and probably my favorite meme, which is kind of like this bell curve meme. And I want to talk to you about where I started from in kind of with the idea for this design studio and where I've reached now and what I feel like now, because right now, I feel like that monk on the far right, um, which is pretty hilarious. So I've seen this bell curve meme in a lot of places, and it's such a hilarious meme for anything career related, because whatever trajectory you decide to go on, it kind of always starts with this. On the left-hand side, you have this like rookie looking thing, if I can say it in a really nice way. We all kind of start out on the left. We are really kind of like on the lower end percentage of how much knowledge we have attained because we are just at the beginning. So we kind of look like a doofus, all of us on the inside and out, no matter what we're doing, if we're trying something new. Then we get to a point where we kind of go up that wave, that bell curve wave, and we get to kind of like the middle of it. And that's when, for some reason, we start crying. For some reason, we start getting too deep into the weeds and trying to figure out things instead of just actually doing. I've fallen into that kind of middle area for so long, just planning and planning and planning and strategizing and thinking, oh, I'm going to perfect this, or now I finally reached it, until you get to the end where you're kind of like a Jedi monk. You're kind of like all focused on execution now. You're just focused on getting things done, and whether or not it's done perfectly, whether or not it's done um, with somebody's help, with or by yourself, you're just focusing on getting things done. So everyone kind of goes on this bell curve wave, especially in your career path, especially if you're trying to learn something new. I've seen this one on Twitter where on the left, you kind of start in the Apple Notes area, which is like helping you keep a track of what you're doing every day and all that stuff. So it's like really chaotic. You're in Apple Notes. And then you go on this kind of bell curve. You try things out like Asana, like Monday, like Trello, Notion, all these fancy tools, even Linear. I'm on Linear right now. Okay. Um, you're trying all these great fancy tools, and you're still stuck in that planning, strategizing cycle. And then eventually you're going to fall right down back to the Jedi monk, given that you've learned a lot along this journey, right? This is kind of a time flow thing. Over time, you're obviously going to learn and kind of become a different person. But again, you just fall back to Apple Notes. And sometimes I do that. I just pull up my phone when I have an idea, and the easiest app to use is Apple Notes on my phone. Notion is not as easy to use on my phone as it is on the computer. So that's an interesting part of the puzzle, right? So that's my favorite version of this meme, and I want to share a little bit of my version of this meme, or what my kind of journey into launching a design studio looks like. And I'm just talking about launching. I'm not talking about actually running it and making money off of it. So I started on the very left in the web design and brand kit space. That was early last year, early 2023. And the reason why I kind of got to that point was I took a coaching class with a really, really talented kind of life coach slash career coach. And that coaching was a little bit different. It was much more introspective. It allowed me to kind of explore four different fronts, four different dimensions of who I am. And those four dimensions include: who are your heroes, number one? What are your intelligences, number two? So kind of what are kind of your core capabilities that come to you naturally? Like for me, I'm a much more of a visual person, so I like visual information. I like visual design. That is my career path. And there's some other ones as well. So the different intelligences that make up who you are, the different talents that make up who you are. Are you more of like a spiritual person? Are you more of a creative person? Are you more logical? Or are you more physical, athletic based? What are kind of those talents that make up who you are? And the fourth thing is the collections. What are you surrounding yourself with? What are some things like, for example, you might have a big book collection and that represents a part of you, or you might have a Pez candy collection, which represents kind of a childishness about you, or even a love for fandoms in that way. So, all four of these dimensions kind of work together as variables to create who you are as a completely unique person. So, through that, what my coach helped me realize is that maybe I'm perfect for what is called a brand kit. A brand kit essentially is a set of guidelines like fonts, colors, um, the voice and tone of your brand, photography, art direction, other things included that one can use to design the most accurate possible brand for a certain company. And so he helped me kind of tone down from web design, which I was like, I might love designing websites for a living. I should do that. I know how to use Webflow. I can offer that as a service. I'm also learning Framer. I can also offer that as a service. And then I got into kind of brand kits. So then that was like the end of that coaching program. And I was at that moment again, I had figured that part out, and my coach helped me figure that out, but I was still kind of a wimp, a dummy, a moron. I didn't know any better. And so I was still at the beginning of that curve. So that brought me to expanding my hemisphere a little bit. It's like, okay, brand kit, I get it. How do I productize that though? How do I fit that into kind of a productized model that I could maybe work on at least at the beginning as a solopreneur? And I was a little bit intimidated by that. Like, how do I go and rebrand a full company all by myself? Obviously, I would need a creator network to tap into. So I started growing that a little bit. As more and more time passed, I started getting into the weeds of things. I started getting into kind of like that middle layer where the bell curve is like the most dangerous, where it's going to force you to start crying. And it's where like everybody has to end up in before they get to the monk phase. So for me, that was storytelling. That was realizing and that could be a great skill to tap into because, first of all, I love movies. I love going to the movies. I love even series. I love cartoons. Since a kid, I've loved cartoons. I've loved Marvel. I've loved Harry Potter. Those are some of the things that make up who I am. So I love storytelling. I love talking about stories. I even, on this exact YouTube channel, I started a video series that went over kind of like the storytelling framework within some of our most favorite and most famous and highest grossing films that people really liked. What is the storytelling framework in that? I was kind of breaking it down and talking about the skeleton. And I have a few videos of that. I'm going to continue doing that as well. But that brought me into like the storytelling side. And then there was also the customer experience touchpoint audit. That is a mouthful, as I realize now. And I even acknowledged then, but I was just so engrossed with it. I couldn't do anything. So that essentially was kind of a tapping into the productized agency model. And that really inspired me because I was looking at things like design subscriptions. So there's a lot of these design subscription agencies like Design Joy. And you've heard maybe of that story. The founder of that, he has built kind of a more than $1 million annual reoccurring revenue from that he founded maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I was inspired by that, and I wanted to kind of explore a productized model that was more productized than a brand kit, right? So that brought me into a kind of a new wave. So that's why I went to create kind of a touchpoint audit report. Essentially, my idea was that you have all of these touch points across your customer experience from beginning to end of how a customer is going to interact with a brand. So, for example, the first time that I see you might be an ad on Facebook. Okay, does that ad match your brand? Let's audit that. Let's test and see if it's matching your brand. And then the next step might be the user comes to your landing page. Now, is your landing page telling the same story as the ad that you put on Facebook? Is the brand identity the same? Is the storytelling the same? You have kind of like the similar copy, the similar positioning and messaging. Is everything consistent across the board? And my idea was that if you were to look at all of those touch points across your customer experience, if you were to map that out, and if you were to improve each one by a few percentages, like levers, right? Like levers on a dashboard. Like if you were to go one by one at each touch point and increase them and turn them on and make them better, like from 70% to 90%, if you were able to do that to all of them, how much business impact would that generate? I was really interested in that. So I created this thing called the Touchpoint Audit Report, where I would take maybe 15 to 20 different touch points within one package of a report. I would look at those and I would grade them and I would let you know what's working, what's not working, what are some recommendations, stuff like that. Kind of an audit report. I tried testing that with a lot of different people. The logic to me in my head sounded great, right? For the longest time. I spent months on that. But as all things happen, as you kind of finally bring that to the market and start testing it with a few past clients of mine. I got them on the phone and I was asked them, like, would you pay for this? Given that we've worked on kind of your brand before, I've designed landing pages for you, I've designed the whole website for you, I've done a full on kind of brand refresh for you. Are you interested in this new thing? And most of the time, the answer was kind of no. And even more than that, it was that they were just confused. And the biggest insight I walked away with was when one past client of mine, and he's a really, really good friend, we actually interned together and he turned into kind of a full-on client of mine when he kind of launched his own brand. And his insight was that most of these people that are on these startup teams, they're marketing leaders that you're most likely going to work with, right? They want things done. If you're going to offer them the design, then they want the full-on design done. You're not going to be able to fly if you're just going to audit what they already have and then tell them to go hire somebody else and work on this. You're going to have to combine that and you're going to have to do a good job at just delivering the thing that they need. And the thing that they need is design services at the end of the day. So why are you going on this whole steep hill of trying to sell something that is like completely different, completely new to you? You haven't explored customer experience in that same way that you might have explored design. Why are you stretching so much? Just try to bring it inwards, try to bring it all together and focus on the thing that matters and focus on the thing that actually people have paid you for, right? People have paid me for my design ability, for my design services. And I have countless brands to to lay proof of that. So that's why I'm talking about this bell curve because I went on that top of the hill thing, right? The 34%, 34%, crying my eyes out, trying to make something out of customer experience, touch point audit, but it didn't work as well, right? So then naturally, I just had to slide right down and put on my hood and say, you know what? I'm going to be a Jedi monk. I'm just going to go back to my roots. I'm just going to go back to doing brand and design for brands, not all of this audit nonsense that I was kind of getting into and that we kind of naturally get into when we're trying to launch something new to the market. Like we'll go off on tangents and we'll let ourselves go off on tangents. And then eventually in the end, we'll just return back to where we should have started in the first place. So that brought me back to uh, just remembering once again, like, who are the clients that I worked with? What did I do for them? And what did they pay me to do? That's it. That's all I tried to answer. And that's when I came up with Brand Glow Up. And that name, obviously, ChatGPT helped me come up with that specific name. But again, I had to input some things, give my own creative ability, and give it the data it needed. And it came up with that. And brand glow up is different than brand kit, and it is different than a rebrand. And I'll explain that really quickly. So rebrand is kind of a fork in the road. It is what legacy brands do when everything that they've done for a while, number one, right? Everything that they've done for a while, it's kind of degraded the history of their brand, what people have known them for many years. It's kind of dissipated. They've lost that edge as to what was that unique core competency that we can appeal to, that unique one single story that people resonated with us originally with, and now it's kind of somewhere lost in the shuffle. So at that point, those legacy brands need to rebrand and kind of accept that, okay, we are at a point where we need to go off into a new direction and we need to take our customers with us. So we need to do something drastic so that they know we've made a change. Think about Meta and Facebook, right? That's the example I'll give you for this. So Facebook originally was also the name of the parent company, and it was also the name of the social media app. And Mark Zuckerberg and his team changed it to Meta. Reason being, they wanted to put a clear departure between Facebook as the app and Facebook as the parent company, given everything that came out in the Cambridge Analytica scandal, right? That was a big proponent of this. So they wanted to kind of bring back the trust in their parent company, that the company that people actually invest money into, not specifically Facebook, but the parent company that owns the collection of brands within that. So they renamed it to Meta, right? Because of that Cambridge Analytica scandal, in part, also because of this new metaverse thing, this Web3 thing that took kind of the whole world by storm in 2020 and 21 and part of 22. So they changed their name to Meta, and that was a big departure, a big rebrand. So you can take that as an example of what a rebrand is. Or it's also number two, why you rebrand is because the brand you already had suffered from a lot of negative publicity, right? So that happens to a lot of companies. I'll give you the Facebook example again. Like I said, the Cambridge Analytica scandal degraded what the name Facebook was within the world. So now, when you have when you have the stock market app open in front of you, or you're a institutional investor, you're going to obviously go for the things that you trust. And obviously, bigger investors, they've done their homework. They know what it is all about. But the name makes a big difference. So when you see that Facebook name, you've associated a lot of bad influences with it. And over time, that degrades the quality of the stock itself. And it is kind of a psychological play that they changed their name to Meta in order to protect that parent company, keep Facebook as an app still alive, but change the name of that parent company. And so they did this within themselves, within their own company, and they rebranded. So that's a rebrand. It's a big fork in the road when you're choosing to go on kind of a complete different direction or a tangent direction that is a little bit off from where you would have headed. So that's what a lot of legacy brands like to do. We want to freshen up, we want kind of a new strategy in place, so we want to look like that strategy. But a brand glow up, for my definition, and what I'm trying to share with the world, is kind of like a facelift. It is a refresh. It is a revitalization of the brand that you already had. It's an evolution of the identity that was already there. And it's kind of more of a surface level refresh. And the reason that's important for my target audience is startups that are set to scale. So startups gearing up for kind of like that growth cycle, kind of growing their team. They're like you're in that 11 to 50 employee range. That's the kind of startup I'm going for. And they're just gearing up to expand their team, expand their business. And the reason being because they've pretty much found a good product market fit. And now they're ready to push that to even more customers and kind of expand. They're gone from that early adopter phase, and now they're getting into kind of normalizing as a real product out in the real world. So that's kind of what a startup has to do when they have to scale up. Same goes for D2C brands, right? When D2C brands, they're just starting out, they're kind of testing it, they're kind of spreading their awareness of their brand. We exist, buy from us, here's what we do. That's completely different. And then there comes a time when they're ready to kind of scale up those operations because they have a consistent flow of customers that are coming in. They're liking the product, they're liking what they're being sold. So you have to kind of scale up your operations in order to meet that growing demand. So for both of those kind of categories of companies, a brand glow up is actually what they need. They don't need a full on rebrand that maybe they would go to like a larger agency and pay tens of thousands for. I want to charge the price that is appropriate for the service that I'm providing. What I want to really focus on is kind of like these startups, that specific problem, that scale up problem. So that's why brand glow up is the appropriate name for that. And it's a nuanced way of looking at how do I evolve my brand identity in a way that I can have the right systems, the right brand guidelines that are going to adapt and grow along with me instead of becoming more and more fragmented as I try to grow, right? Because that is a big pain point, that is a big bottleneck, and that is a huge waste of money, a huge waste of resources. If you're in a plane and you want to fly, you want to be fuel efficient. It's the same thing here. You want to be brand efficient, and you want to make sure that all the dollars that you're putting into those larger scale marketing campaigns, now all of them are associated just to you as a brand and across all your fronts, across all your touch points, right? And it goes back to kind of like that middle layer of the bell curve. Like this is all a process though. Even I look at this as a meme as like, oh, why did I go on that like mistakeful route and then have to come right back to where I would have started anyway? You have to go on a process. It is a learning experience. It took me, this is probably 6 months of my time, my life, my energy, my runway, right? This is 6 months of that. But I had to go on this route in order to realize where I needed to be at the right moment. And if I hadn't gone that route, maybe I would have maybe taken a different kind of bell curve. But no matter what you do, as I find, you're always going to go down this route unless you've paid someone huge amounts of money for coaching to get you straight from point A to the monk, and some talented coaches out there. But I only had so much runway as to kind of retain with that coaching, and rather to just spend some time by myself and kind of explore the world a little bit, explore what I needed to do, explore what is that service offering. But now I'm in a place where I feel like that Jedi monk, and I'm really happy about that. And that's why I feel like I'm more comfortable sharing this now, because I've already gone on this and I have some stuff to document and to some stuff to share takeaways about, without which I probably wouldn't be here, right? Um, so that's just this kind of bell curve meme that I wanted to talk about today. This was kind of a long-winded answer as to saying I wanted to explore the world a little bit before I latched onto something. That's why I didn't choose brand kit. I didn't run with that first off because I tried to kind of continue figuring out like who does this work for? Who would this be valuable to? Like I just had such a hard time figuring that out. And now I have. I have figured it out that I'm valuable to startups that are getting ready to scale. And I can help them scale those operations, especially the marketing team. I can help the marketing team figure out the brand in such a way that they set up the correct guidelines, the correct systems and processes, the correct few templates, the correct CMS within Webflow to get them started on producing these large scale campaigns and bringing even more business and even more impact and even more revenue, because marketing does own, if not at least 50% of bringing in revenue for the startup. That's how it kind of works in the beginning days. So I wanted to be a part of that and I wanted to deliver that. And I'll leave you off with one more thing. One of my core beliefs is to follow your heart and do what you love. And in today's world, you can follow your heart and do what you love and make a living out of it. And if you follow people like Chris Do, they'll tell you the same thing. If you follow people like Gary Vee, they'll tell you the same thing. And it's just a learning process. It's not a clear answer. It's always introspective. It's like, what am I made for? What am I good at? What is my core competency? What is it that I can provide to the world that I'm still passionate about, that the world will find valuable? And your goal in life should be to do what it is that you love and do it in such a way that is scalable and do it in such a way that provides a lot of impact for a lot of people. But you always start with delivering impact, delivering value for one person. That's where you always start. And that's where I started. And now I'm at a point where now I can start kind of thinking about scaling this. Like, first, I just worked as an in house designer. Now I want to work with different brands, different clients. I want to help many different brands appropriate and plug in the right systems and processes so that they can scale up their operations in such a way that the brand is not degraded, in such a way that the brand identity remains intact, remains consistent, and you're telling that continuous story across the board. So again, a call back to this bell curve meme, my favorite meme. Let me know if it's your favorite meme as well. Or let me know what your favorite memes are, actually. Um, but this is my favorite meme. Um, I've gone on this journey and I look at it now and I'm like, wow, I could have just gone from point A to point B, but the journey is important. The journey teaches you a lot of things. The journey allows you to pick up a lot of different skills that you otherwise wouldn't have thought about picking up. For me, it was like storytelling. And as a result of that, I kind of launched this own YouTube channel and I started getting more comfortable on the camera to be able to speak like this, to be able to talk about myself and kind of my discoveries. So, in that same way, you're going to learn a lot of different things and you're going to be able to get to a point where you're going to reach that specific offering that's exactly the right offering for the right person, and that's going to start making you money. And that's kind of like the end goal of like doing what you love, doing it well, and doing it for the right person so that you can make a living doing what you love. It's a full circle thing, right? Just like storytelling. It's a full circle thing. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and comment below some of your thoughts, anything that you could find that would be helpful for me as to not go on maybe another big bell curve like this and waste 6 more months. I'd rather kind of be on a much more focused cycle now. So if you have any more comments or feedback or opinions, even if you're on a bell curve right now and you feel like you're stuck, please let me know. Please share it with everyone in the comments below. We can all talk about it. We can all learn from it, and we can all help each other grow and not stay in kind of like the unlikely scenario and push each other to actually making a living out of it, what it is that we love doing. And so with that, I'll see you in the next one, and a big salute. Thank you.